Welcome to the Fit as a Mama Bear podcast. I'm Shelby, a certified strength coach, nutrition coach, mama to two, and all-around health nut. This show is about a little bit of everything healthy, fit, and natural related. So if you're striving to smash goals, eat better, feel better, and enjoy the occasional mom rant, this is the place for you. Unless you've been hiding under a rock for the last few years, I'm pretty sure you've heard the term gut health. But like everything else in the health world, the term gut health can mean so many things. We know our gut is involved in our immune system, but how? With so many random references, it's no wonder that most of us are confused on the best way to improve our health and wellness naturally. But today I want to fix that. I want to help you take control of your health, to learn what's possible when you delve into gut health and nutrient-driven system repair. I want you to know that you can heal, improve, and excel when it comes to your health. You're listening into episode 28 today, where I'm chatting to Erin Harris, a mom of 2-year-old twins and an exercise and cardiac physiologist. Erin has a huge passion for helping others flourish in their life and a big believer that food is medicine. So let's do it. Welcome to today's episode, everyone. So thank you so much for letting me pop into your ear today, and I won't disappoint. I'm excited for today's episode because it's about a little bit of a passion of mine, which is gut health. So if you are new to the podcast, hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss the next episode. But I started learning more and more about how food can heal when I started researching the link between cancer and nutrition. So it is totally morbid, but it was also kind of fascinating to me. One of my favorite books is actually How Not to Die. And of course, in that research, more and more came up about the gut, how it's its own entity, how it has its own command center, and so much of disease comes from an unhealthy gut. So however, each person's gut health is individualized like anything else, one thing to remember. And we'll cover the basics today. Just know that there's a lot of trial and error in making it all work. So while I adore gut health, reading about it, chatting about it, and working on my own healthy system, I am absolutely terrible when it comes to explaining anything related to science or delving into scientific explanations and analysis, which is why I brought Erin on the show. So Erin has a background in exercise and cardiac physiology and is a mama of 2. So she has twins mamas. She struggled immensely through her earlier years with hormone control and was advised to begin multiple medications. However, Erin took a different route, and that's what I want to chat about today. So welcome to the podcast, Erin. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you so much, Shelby. I'm so excited to be here. This is like my favorite thing to talk about, and I think just so fitting for what's going on in the world today. So like you said, I have struggled with hormonal imbalances my whole life, and really unknowingly. So I didn't realize that anything was wrong until I tried to fall pregnant. And so my whole life I had these struggles with weight and hair loss and acne, and all the doctors I went to just kept telling me, go get your thyroid checked. You just have acne because you're going through puberty, your hair. It was kind of left like a topic that was never going to be discussed. But all of the tests that I always had always came back normal. And everyone always told me, you just need to work out more, exercise more, and eat better. And my mom would sit there and say, look, if this girl exercises any more or eats any better, she's going to end up in, not a very good mental health place. So it was so frustrating. And then when I went to go and have a baby, we struggled. And I ended up running into a friend who was pregnant, and she kind of told me her story. And I was like, I feel like you're telling me about my life. And she was like, honestly, Erin, go and get tested, go and see this fertility specialist. If nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. But if something's wrong, then at least you know, and you know how to deal with it. So I walked into the door of this fertility specialist's practice, and he looked at me and he said, you have PCOS. And I said, what? No one has ever said that to me before, and I don't even really know what that is. And he was like, look, we're going to run some tests, but basically in order to qualify, you need 2 of the 3 columns to be classified and have the diagnosis of PCOS. One, having physical symptoms, which I do, which for me is a loss of head hair, excessive or male growth pattern hair on your face and your body. So I don't have that excessively, but definitely signs of it. Acne, cystic acne, and very large difficulty in losing weight the traditional way through diet and exercise. So I definitely had all of those. You also need a blood test to validate that your sex hormones at baseline are irregular, which I did. And then you need to have an internal ultrasound to show cystic ovaries. So a cystic ovary is not what you think, like a physical cyst that could burst and cause a lot of pain. But when your eggs are follicles, they naturally grow and mature. And then when you have a period and you ovulate, that is a mature follicle coming into your uterus. And with PCOS, that doesn't happen every month. Sometimes it happens on a more regular basis than others, but basically you have excess follicles in your ovaries, so they appear cystic on an ultrasound. So if you have at least 2 of those 3 categories, you are diagnosed with PCOS. So I found that out, and all of a sudden, my whole life made sense, which was such a relief, really, because I think if you live with something like that, you are constantly in this state of mind that you're not doing something right. And you are, like you're not good enough. You're just not fulfilling what society tells you is correct or acceptable. And so to have that diagnosis was such a big relief, because now I knew it wasn't really my fault. My body was working against me, and I didn't have all the information that I needed in order to put the pieces together. So fortunately, I was successful in conceiving. I ended up having twins, girl, boy, so amazing. But on the downside of that whole process, like many people do, I gained a bunch of weight during my pregnancy. And
which is
afterwards,
normal, I like to point out.
Oh, totally normal, totally normal. But for me, I was like, anticipating that to happen. And then so afterwards I was like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to cope and handle this afterwards? Because I know that the only way I've ever been able to be successful in losing weight so that I am in a healthy range previously is to be super drastic. So like massive calorie restriction, massive calorie exertion, which is not healthy. It's not nutritious or nutrient rich for your body. It's not doing your systems any good, but if you do it for long enough and drastic enough, of course you will lose weight. But that's not maintainable, and like I said, it's not healthy. So I had gone like boom, 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 boom my whole life. And now having this extra piece of information, I was just so determined to get it right this time. So of course, following my pregnancy and successful bringing into the world 2 little babies, the doctors were like, okay, you need to go on this and this and this and this and this, and that will control your PCOS. So my background is in the medical world, and I've studied the body and the systems for a very long time, and I just really was not happy with that. I feel like there's a massive gap in medicine at the moment as a stereotype that doctors typically are taught how to diagnose and then how to treat symptoms. But there are very few people out there who just take the extra step and try to look at what is actually causing this and go back to the source. And for me, it all comes back to your gut, because that is the main entry point into our body for all of our nutrients, and how all of our systems function is off of the nutrients that we give it. So I just kind of stripped everything back and really focused on, and kind of like re-educated myself, because of course I had the knowledge, but I just hadn't put everything together yet. So I really stripped everything back, did a ton of research, and made some very small alterations to my nutrition for a short period. And then I reintroduced those allergenic acidic food groups. And what I found in the process of doing that was insane. So basically I lost like 12 pounds in 10 days. I to date have lost close to 75 pounds. And I don't feel like it was hard, if that makes sense. Like only because in the past, like I was working out 3 hours a day,
which is insane.
And being super restrictive and basically living off of lettuce and cucumber and like a tiny bit of protein. And so that is hard.
Yeah.
This for me was not hard. I didn't feel like I was missing out on anything. I felt amazing, which is the massive piece that was missing before, because you can do all those things and lose weight, but you're not nourishing your body. And so you end up feeling horrible. You're fatigued and you have no energy. You sleep horribly. Your skin is just dull and gross. And you just, it's an effort. Everything is an effort. So I was just blown away with how good I felt. And I thought, oh my gosh, like people are walking around in this world having no idea how good they can feel, because what they feel at the moment is actually not great, but that's their normal. And because they've never, gone through this process, they just have no idea how good they can feel. So, I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, but that's kind of like where my background. And yeah, so now I just live my life around nourishing my gut and making sure that that is all in line, because if that is working, all the domino effects from that is everything else that people want to achieve, like more energy and better sleep and losing a little bit of weight sometimes and having better skin, like all of it's connected. So that's kind of where I'm at today.
I'll take the rambles. I like them. And we will come back to this later on, just about the trial and error. But I did want to touch on it here too, because so I had not a similar experience at all, actually. But when I was struggling to get pregnant, I went and saw a holistic nutritionist. And the first thing she made me do was strip out dairy from my diet. Told her I wanted a face puncher, so that was a good time. But it made a ginormous difference. And it was one of those things that I didn't realize all the things that dairy was causing until I took it out. And then, of course, being the idiot I am, I put it back in because I was like, no, I like cheese. Who doesn't like cheese? So you put it back in and then you feel terrible. And you're like, oh, that's what that feeling was that I just hung out with for how long? Mm-hmm. So I don't think that there's a perfect system for everyone. But I do think a lot of the benefits you mentioned, like clear skin, and for me, no stabbing pains in my abdomen, and just your energy levels, until you actually trial and error the foods that take those away, or the foods that cause those, you're not going to know anything. So while we can rant about gut health all day long, it is a lot of trial and error. You do have to work for it. It doesn't have to be overly intense. You don't need to restrict everything, but playing guinea pig helps.
It sure does. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, definitely. You mentioned a ton of benefits as to why we should focus on gut health. So all the things you mentioned above, but what are some of the things that can hinder our gut health? So what is going to suppress it and make it not function as optimally as it should? Common things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about your systemic toxicity levels, right? And we get toxins in our life every single day from all sorts of things. The things that we breathe in, the things that we eat and drink, and the things that we put on our skin. So those three passageways, your skin, your lungs, and your stomach, are the ways that nutrients and toxins alike enter our system. And what happens when we increase the amount of toxins that we're having that our bodies do not really know how to process, it's like goes into survival mode. So what happens is it will uptake it into our cells, encapsulate it, and kind of push it to the side. And that creates a series of inflammation in our body, which can present in so many different ways. But basically, the crux of it is that the lining of our gastrointestinal gut is not nourished and is not being well looked after, because all of these little toxins are getting in the way of the nutrients that we are having to really support its function. And so you end up having a condition called leaky gut. And basically you've got all these little villas in your tummy that help push food along and break it down and absorb it, and they look like little fingers under a microscope. So it increases the surface area of spaces that nutrients can go through. And what happens when these cells get pushed apart, it basically, the surface area decreases because there's not as many cells there. And so then all of the domino effect of that is things like headaches and migraines and poor skin. There's a lot of research coming out now with the relationship between mental health and your gut, and is it like the chicken or the egg, which one came first? Because I think a lot of science previously suggested that stress and anxiety causes irritable bowel syndrome or gastrointestinal issues, where now a lot of researchers are looking at the flip side, that people who have poor gut health and who are creating this environment of leaky gut actually are more predisposed to having depression and anxiety and other mental health issues. So once the cells start to part and more toxins enter, because it's an easier entry point for them, then we increase our inflammation, and inflammation just contributes to every single ailment that you could ever think of, that many of us live with, unfortunately, every single day.
And I'm really glad you touched on the 3 avenues in which we can kind of take in toxins, because I know obviously people think about food as much as anything else, but I think that we kind of overlook that what we're putting on our skin makes a very big difference too. So one of the reasons that I'm a crazy DIYer is because I learned that a really long time ago, and I looked at the ingredients in my traditional skincare, and it was insane, to be perfectly honest. And you think of women, and we're using makeup and hairspray and lotions and scrubs and 20,000 things every single day. And I think we've just gotten away from the impact that daily buildup has on our system. It's one of those things that we want to ignore because we don't want to acknowledge it. But
absolutely,
it's different.
Absolutely. And it's one of those tricky things, because you go to a store and you purchase something and you assume that it's safe because it's allowed to be sold. But unfortunately for us in North America, there are actually only 14 ingredients that are banned from all personal care products. Compare that to Europe, where there's 14,000 ingredients that are not allowed in products. So in North America, you have to prove that something is directly linked to cancer for it to not be allowed inside of a product. And even then, when there's so much proof, like talc, for instance, there's so much proof of the harmful effect of that, it is still not banned for companies to put that in their products.
Well, I'm looking at makeup and fragrance too. They don't legally have to disclose what's in those because they're secrets. I don't know what they're
proprietary.
Yeah, so they don't even have to disclose what they put in those.
No.
And so that leads to me, that scares the crap out of me now. It's one of those things I never used to think twice about, but now I'm like, we're just putting that on our skin every single day, and they don't even legally have to tell me what's in it.
Yeah.
It's alarming, but I guess that's a rant for another day. I feel like I could get into that one.
Could go on all day about that one. Yeah.
So we mentioned a couple of symptoms of unhealthy gut. So you're looking at bloating, and acne is one that a lot of people overlook. We just attribute to bad skin, but that does stem from the gut. Mood swings, energy levels, headaches, all of those things are symptoms of a gut that is just not functioning optimally. So give us some daily practices that we can kind of put into place to help our guts thrive.
Yeah, so I think definitely there is a huge list of things that you could implement, but to keep it simple, the best thing you can do is eat whole foods. So stay away from the processed stuff, you know, things that are typically addictive, sugars, processed meats. I'm sorry, Shelby, processed cheeses,
Yeah.
ice cream, chocolate, all that stuff, all that convenient, quick fix foods. Those are the things that are going to be doing the most damage. Look at other things that are addictive, like coffee. You know, having a cup of coffee a day is not a bad thing. But if you use it as a crutch to get through your day, that is not a good thing, and it's doing you more harm than good. And implementing some really good sources of probiotics. You know, probiotics are the things that are really going to help restore your gut flora, give you all that good gut bacteria, so that the nutritious food that you are having, your body can then properly break it down to a level that it can be absorbed. Because so many people will say, you are what you eat, but actually you are what you can absorb, right? And if you can't break it down and you can't absorb it, all that good stuff is going in and then just coming out and not, you know, assisting your system and assisting your natural detoxification process to sort of grab onto those toxins and pull them out. And in fact, it's actually contributing to their you know, their place in your cells and just keeping them there for the long haul. So yeah, some simple sources of probiotics is really important. So
talk to me about probiotics for a second, because I did have one of my Twitter followers kind of mention and comment on that. Do you have a brand that you kind of like, or what should we maybe be looking for when we're purchasing probiotics? I know I get mine out of the refrigerator section, and I can't even think of the brand right now. It might be Udo's something, I don't know.
Yeah.
But so a brand would be really helpful for everyone, as well as how often should we be taking our probiotics? So I've heard that we should probiotic cycle, meaning take them for 2 weeks, give your body time to hang out, maybe ease off them, bring them back in. Tell us more.
So it really depends on what type of probiotic you prefer. I have one that is freeze dried. So it's a dry shelf item. It is activated when it comes into contact with liquid. So for me, that's great because I'm always kind of on the go, and with the kids, if I'm out doing things, I can easily have a couple in my bag that if I forget to take it in the morning, I can quickly just, you know, pop it in an energy drink or some water or whatever it is, a smoothie, to have super easily. And there's so many different sources of probiotics that you can get. And I don't want to say that one is better than the other. It really is going to be dependent on your system. But I think if you're, as a broad standard, you need to be having a pre and probiotic. The prebiotic is going to act as the food for the probiotic to really flourish. So if you're having a probiotic on its own, the sort of standard is that that probiotic will usually last for between 20 and 24 hours. So I recommend having a probiotic every single day so that you can maintain that level of good bacteria with every meal that you have. But if you're not having the prebiotic with the probiotic, then the probiotic is going to die off faster than it should. So I am an ambassador for a specific company. So that's the one that I love to have because I think it's super effective.
You can go ahead and say
it. So I use Arbonne Digestive Plus. It's a 3-in-1. So you also get digestive enzymes in it, which helps to break down sort of those more complex food items that you might be eating. But yeah, I think like you can make your own through fermented foods. You can buy kefir, you can, you know, have the refrigerated probiotics, or you can have the freeze-dried ones. All of them, I think, are pretty effective, but the level of effectiveness is going to really depend on your specific system. So it's best to sort of talk to either someone like myself or a naturopath about your current situation and what your diet normally entails to be able to decide what's going to be the best one for you.
Okay. Now, so I am a fermented food addict. I have kimchi or sauerkraut every day. I'm a home brewer for kombucha. I'm just that weirdo. Do you think that people who are very continuous with their fermented foods still need the probiotic, or are they kind of doing the same thing, canceling each other out?
Definitely doesn't cancel each other out. I think the fermented food is great, and if you are incorporating that into your diet every day, that's going to be super beneficial for you, but unfortunately it's not going to do all of the work, because if you're just having sauerkraut or you're using the same products every day, you're not getting that diversity of bacteria. So you will end up lacking in some of those good bacteria, which could be the missing factor for the issues that you're having to be resolved. Because like everything, no one thing can work in solitude. There's multifaceted. So having a well-rounded probiotic is really important. But if you are incorporating fermented foods into your diet, that's only going to enhance the effectiveness of a good probiotic.
Okay, noted. Now, what about kefir? Can you talk to me about that? Because it's one that is a bit of a mind thing for me. So I don't tolerate dairy very well. I had to eliminate dairy a couple of years ago. As I mentioned, I'm still slightly bitter, just so everyone knows. No mistake.
Fair.
I can make my own chocolate, that's fine, but I do get a little twitchy. Anyways, but kefir is a great probiotic. So because it's fermented, would you recommend it? Because I know a lot of people are actually dairy intolerant and they don't realize it. And I think that everyone should go through a period where they eliminate it, reintroduce it, and see how their body responds. But with kefir, it's a bit tricky to place because it's fermented.
Yeah. So I think kefir is a great product and it is a good source of probiotics, but I don't think it should be the first avenue you go down, because of the factor that you mentioned. So many people are dairy intolerant and don't even know it. And unfortunately, that is not anybody's fault, but the reality is that the dairy that we receive and purchase in the store today is not in its purest form, right? The reality of the world is that the population is growing. We need to make sure there's enough food for everyone. So things get added either to the food that the cows eat or how the milk's made to let that expand a little bit. And so unfortunately, we end up with all of these products in the dairy that our systems don't know how to process and how to eliminate. And that's where the intolerances lie. So by eliminating dairy completely and then reintroducing it after a period of time, you'll understand how your system responds to that. And if you have a system that is okay with dairy, then definitely go for some kefir. It's a fantastic source of probiotics. Like you said, it is fermented. It does have a grain source in that as well. So it's so good for your cells. But you have to decipher whether or not your system can cope with the whey and the dairy source. And for so many people, well, at least the people that I work with and come across, a lot of people can't handle it. So they'll come and say, well, I take kefir, I do all these things, like, why is nothing working for me? And it's, they are in theory doing all the right things, but they're working against their system, or their system's working against them. And like they're missing a few pieces of the puzzle. So I think it's probably best to start with a non-dairy source of probiotics, and go through the process of eliminating dairy, gluten, and soy are my three big ones that I get people to eliminate. And then from there, you have such a better understanding about how your body is going to respond to it when you reintroduce it. And there's a whole process that goes into that, but that's kind of like the top level understanding. And the message that I try to communicate to people is I'm not saying kefir is bad, but don't have that as your main first source of probiotics, because we don't yet understand how your body responds to dairy at its true source.
I like it. That's a good game plan, to be perfectly honest. Which brings me to aloe juice. So this one has come up quite a bit in my lovely cancer nutrition research. It is a popular one. I use it honestly more in DIY products than I do from an ingesting perspective. But tell me what you know about aloe juice and intaking it or adding it to smoothies or drinking it, or just tell me a little bit more about what to do with that one.
Yeah, I think aloe juice is fantastic in its true form. The thing I don't like about aloe juice is it gets marketed a lot to appeal to the consumer, but like, you know, everyone needs to start becoming label readers more so than ever. And unfortunately, a lot of the aloe juices that are out there are actually full of sugar. And you might taste it and be like, oh, it tastes really good. This is supposed to be good for me. I could drink a whole ton of this. But in fact, you're just loading your system up with sugar. And it's just a very small amount of aloe that's actually in there. So aloe,
like coconut water too. It dries. Yeah. So my girls were always drinking coconut water, and I love it. It's yummy and delicious and really hydrating. But they put sugar in so much coconut water that you need to look at the back. And I remember how shocked my mom was, being like, just because she didn't realize. And for me, it causes rage, because why the hell does coconut water need sugar? But so it's the same thing with aloe. Interesting.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there are some really good brands out there, but typically, like if you're just going to the supermarket or your standard health food shop, a lot of them are full of sugar. So that I'm not a fan of. But aloe in its pure form is fantastic for your gut. It's really soothing, and it really helps to move that sludge that just sits there, which unfortunately we all have, like anywhere between 5 and 20 pounds of sludge at any given time within our gastrointestinal tract. So aloe is a really nice way to cleanse your GI tract and move along some of that stuff. It also helps neutralize some acidic gases. So it's really good for bloating. And that, along with ginger and lemon, like the combination of those three are really, really, really good to help sort of like not rebuild, but like, it's like if you were to put aloe on a sunburn. Like your guts when they're bloated and inflamed is like a sunburn on your skin. And the aloe juice is really soothing to allow those cells to restore themselves without having to die off and then be rebuilt.
So now I use Lily of the Desert aloe for my DIY products. I do know that they have an aloe juice extract and an aloe whole leaf juice or whole leaf something. Which one would you recommend? Does it matter?
I would go with the whole leaf.
Okay.
The extract tells me it's got some good stuff in it, but then they're adding a ton of other stuff to it.
Okay.
So if you can go with the whole leaf, then that's just going to minimize the amount of additives that get added to it.
Okay, and I'm going to go check my fridge right after this podcast and look at the back. If it is sufficient, I will leave that in the resources. If not, I will probably write an angry email, if I'm being perfectly honest. Okay, so just to sum up, in case you are kind of freaking out about all of this gut health fun, your gut is responsible for absolutely everything in your body. So any kind of inflammation, it is the precursor to a lot of disease risk and all of that. But symptoms are very different for everyone. So it could be headaches or acne or bloating or random stabbing pains or just feeling really sluggish and not being able to counter it no matter how many coffees you drink. There are a lot of things that you can do to improve your gut, but the biggest and simplest one is to eat whole nourishing food and to scale back on sugars and processed food. So that is always going to be step number one. From there, everything you do is just added bonus. So probiotics, prebiotics, anti-inflammatory foods like turmeric and garlic and aloe, those types of things are all going to be benefits, but at the end of the day, you still have to reduce crap food in order to see a difference. So I am always going to recommend a trial and error system of eliminating the 3 major allergens that you mentioned, which is gluten, dairy, and soy, reintroducing them one by one, and honestly just taking note of how your body feels. It's how I've learned the most about my body in the last 10 years and why I go for more intuitive eating style now. Erin, anything else to add to that?
I think that is, yeah, I mean, I could talk all day about this. I'll try not to get into the weeds. I just would really encourage people to go down the avenue and do this trial and error method, because it is amazing the domino effect that you will see in your life. And then you can start to intuitively eat, like you said, Shelby. You're then picking what you're going to eat and ingest based on how you feel and how that either inhibits or makes your system flourish, rather than following a fad diet that tells you you have to have a certain amount of this or that, or you can't have that, and that doesn't take into your body into account, which means at the end of the day, it's not going to be maintainable.
I love that. Yes. Well, thank you, Bunches, for coming on to the podcast today. And for all the listeners, I truly hope that you now have a better idea of the power of a healthy gut. Before we sign off here, Erin, why don't you tell us where everyone can find you in case they want to get in touch?
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. My handle is at Erin Louise Harris. I would love to chat with anyone about gut health, whether it's just a discussion or you have any questions, please reach out. Yeah, it just makes me so happy when people are concerned about their health.
Instagram is actually where we met, so that's the funny thing, because I kept commenting on all of her gut health things because I'm also a weirdo. So definitely check her out. I will link to her in the show notes also. And remember, if you're in need of fitness tips, workouts, and amazingly healthy recipes, check out my own website at www.fitasmamabear.com, as well as my YouTube channel for exact at-home workouts to stay fit as a busy mom. On that note, check back soon to catch the next episode of the Fit as a Mama Bear podcast. And if you took one lesson from today's podcast, I hope it's that you're inspired to make changes, even one small one, to take your health and your life into your own hands. Chat soon, everyone.